to the County Government Additional Bill 2024. Mr. Speaker, before I make any further comments, Mr. Speaker, allow me, with your indulgence, to wish all 965,000 KCSE students and KCSE all the best as they begin their national exams, and encourage them, Mr. Speaker, to do their best in their forthcoming exams of KCSE 2024, Mr. Speaker. We wish them good health, we wish them good memory, Mr. Speaker, and they have to know, Mr. Speaker, that you must not get an A. You can get any grade, but if you are going at a particular direction, Mr. Speaker, God will be gracious and you can make life, especially to our KCSE students, Mr. Speaker, wherever they are. Mr. Speaker, I want to comment and thank the Committee of Finance and Budget. For the first time, the Finance and Budget Committee have made tremendous progress, Mr. Speaker. You remember after the Finance Bill 2024 flopped, there was an issue of reviewing our allocations to counties. Mr. Speaker, one of them was 401 billion. You remember after amendment by the National Assembly, it was reduced to 380 billion, which was way below before the last financial year of 385 billion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even on conditional grants, they went ahead and reduced, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say the National Assembly continues to violate the Constitution and defile the Constitution because of corruption, because of lethargy, because of poor governance, Mr. Speaker. You don't need to, Mr. Speaker, to undermine devolution by reducing the money that will go to our devolved units, Mr. Speaker. So I want to thank the Finance and Budget Committee, Mr. Speaker, and I can see a number of members in the House for the good job, Mr. Speaker, for rejecting this reduction. Mr. Speaker, as a former governor, many counties struggle to fulfill the basics of roads, bursary, water, access to drugs, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to agree, while we agree counties do not have the best, they don't do the job, Mr. Speaker, that should be done. For example, in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, in the financial year that we just concluded, my good friend, the governor, purchased a mass grave of 115 million, yet there is no location. When the county assembly asked Mr. Speaker, he said there was no need to buy mass grave site since the people did not die. But the money had been expended. The land that was being bought, Mr. Speaker, cannot be located, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, and yet 115 million was spent, Mr. Speaker. While we ask governors, Mr. Speaker, we give them the money, they must be accountable for those money, Mr. Speaker. Even, and also be prudent in the resources that we are talking about, Mr. Speaker. For example, in my county, in the financial year 2023, 2024, my governor, through foreign travels, used 310 million, according to Auditor General's report, Mr. Speaker. One of the foreign trips he went was to see how tarmac roads are being done to bitumen standards somewhere in China, cooperation in China, Mr. Speaker. Yet we know county governments do not have capacity to build tarmac roads, unless it is different in Migori, Mr. Speaker. He even went to see where Jesus Christ was born, Mr. Speaker. Yet for us who are Christians, believe that Jesus Christ should be born in our hearts, Mr. Speaker. So these are the challenges. We ask governors, Mr. Speaker, at any given instances, to use prudent the resources they have, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the cutting of that was the conditional allocation to the financial year 2024-2025 was to be decreased within 15.4 billion. From 61 plus billion, Mr. Speaker, 61.9 to 46%. I don't agree. Even on road maintenance levy fund, the 10 billion, Mr. Speaker, you remember we even sat over it, Mr. Speaker, even in our parliamentary group meeting, over this 10 billion, that this road maintenance levy fund must be given to counties, Mr. Speaker, so that they can do improvement infrastructure to the bitumen standards, to the tarmac, Mr. Speaker. Where I come from, like in Kapsabet town, in Nandi Hills town, in Maraba town, in Kabiyet, in Mosoria township, Mr. Speaker, where the contractor is doing a substandard job, Mr. Speaker, in Mosoria, where we are having a rechite like, Mr. Speaker, of a tarmac road in Mosoria, for example. Even in Kaptuma and Kobuja, Mr. Speaker, the county should be given this 10 billion through road maintenance levy fund, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that there is value for this money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even the counties like Elgeyo Marakwet, Isiolo, Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, they cannot construct their county headquarters, Mr. Speaker. This 523 million point one was to assist them. We did visit Isiolo. And we noticed, Mr. Speaker, the county headquarters construction has stalled because of the revenue allocation that we give counties like Elgeyo Marakwet, like Isiolo, like Nyamira, Mr. Speaker. They don't, and other counties, they don't have sufficient resources to allocate to the county headquarters. And therefore, there was a Solomonic reasoning as to why we gave them 523 million, Mr. Speaker, but this one was given 0. And you know the sad thing, Mr. Speaker, and I want to ask the Finance and Budget Committee members who are here, I have not seen the chair, the Senator of Mandera, distinguished senator, that did they consult with the Finance and Budget Committee of the National Assembly? Because how did they remove 523.1 million meant for county headquarters, Mr. Speaker? Yet these counties continue to struggle, Mr. Speaker. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, even on the issue of county aggregation and industrial parks, whereby the counties was to give 250 million, the national government was to match in similar amount, Mr. Speaker. Yet on this one of 2.5 billion, Mr. Speaker, it was supposed to be 4.5 billion so that we build industrial parks, Mr. Speaker. I notice a number of your visitors in the gallery, Mr. Speaker, are young people. They are looking for opportunities. They are looking for jobs. One of the ways to grow this country, even moving from the third to first world by Liu Kim, Mr. Speaker, in the Singapore story, Mr. Speaker. The only way is to have manufacturing so that job opportunities can give to the young people, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this slashing of money going to aggregation centers that will affect Kilifi, will affect Nandi, will affect Vihiga, Mr. Speaker, yet they had agreed that 250 million is given by the national government. 250 million is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. Another important thing, Mr. Speaker, that I found it weird and absolute, we are talking about universal health coverage. We are talking about SHIV. We are talking about SHIA, Mr. Speaker. Yet we cannot, the equity, Mr. Speaker, access universal health coverage. Universal access to health, Mr. Speaker. You can see the president and the government and come up with what we call community health promoters. It was unwise for the National Assembly to cut this money, Mr. Speaker, only to 2.584 billion, which can compensate 86,133 CHPs, Mr. Speaker. Yet we had hired 107,831 community health promoters, Mr. Speaker. And these health promoters are like the extension officers that we have in counties, Mr. Speaker. These are the people who will go to mashinani, Mr. Speaker. At our villages, Mr. Speaker, some of us come from where to access a health center, you take 5 kilometers. You access that health center, Mr. Speaker, there are no drugs. There is no medication. There is no service. These community health promoters, Mr. Speaker, were supposed to assist, Mr. Speaker, in accessing quality health care, Mr. Speaker. Say that things like, Mr. Speaker, you go to referral hospital on Eldoret, Moi Teaching a referral hospital. You get somebody who is in Eldoret, Moi Teaching a referral hospital, or Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital in Kisumu. The former, it was called Russian Hospital. You go to Coast General Hospital. You go to Nakuru PGH. You get in those referral hospitals, even Mama Lucy, Mr. Speaker. And I saw Mama Lucy, I saw another story, Mr. Speaker, over the weekend in one of the leading stations, showing how 4 people are sleeping in one bed in Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, Mr. Speaker. How can we alleviate that? If the Mama Lucy here hospital, 4 or 5 people, women, others were sleeping on the floor, Mr. Speaker. Those are countries that are medieval. It cannot happen in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. So how do we, with that is the reason they were community health promoters, Mr. Speaker. So that the people want to give birth. Some of us, Mr. Speaker, were not lucky. We were not born in hospitals, like the Gen Z and the rest, Mr. Speaker. Some of us were under the mask of midwives in the villages. Mr. Speaker, no wonder we are very brilliant. Because the first time we were born into this world, we got a good slap, and we were able to awaken to the reality of this world, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, that is why where we are today. And that is why we thought by bringing CHPs, community health promoters, to the village level was very critical. And what happened in Mama Lucy over the weekend, and I'm happy the Senator of Nairobi, my good friend and Secretary General of Blood-Based Government is here, Mr. Speaker, is that you cannot allow 4 people to sleep in one bed, Mr. Speaker. That is condemning. It should be condemned with the strongest possible terms, Mr. Speaker. And I hope after this, the Senator of Nairobi, who is my good friend, will request the Health Committee to do thorough inspection before Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, Mr. Speaker, so that our people can get access to medical health care. So I disagree in totality, Mr. Speaker. Why would you, for example, I was talking about referral hospital, like Kenyatta National Hospital, Mr. Speaker, here in Nairobi. Why would somebody who has normal cough or has normal malaria go to referral hospital like Moi Teaching a referral in Eldoret? If our healthcare system was functional in Vihiga, you don't need to amputate anybody to the Kisumu Referral Hospital, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, or Moi Teaching a Referral Hospital. I can see there is a Kakamega that is upcoming. I don't know whether it was handed over to the national government. I remember there was advanced conversation, and I hope it is handed over. Because Moi Teaching a Referral Hospital is overwhelmed, Mr. Speaker. So on this issue of community health promoters, we must agree as a country, Mr. Speaker, that health is very critical. It is very important. In fact, what we should be doing is to add more community health promoters. Let them work with some basic dawa or some basic medicine. Let's go and check pressure. Mr. Speaker, are you aware? Most of our older people in our communities, even in Kilifi, are dying because of basic diseases like diabetes, like pressure, Mr. Speaker. Things that can be treatable. Can we ensure these CHPs are well equipped to work into a village in Homa Bay and assist our parents, our old people, to take diabetes, to take pressure, Mr. Speaker? It is killing our people, the hypertension, because of lack of access and because we thought the CHPs, Mr. Speaker, would be important to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, that they get access to quality medical care. Number 4, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of museum. Mr. Speaker, this is just a basic, Mr. Speaker, and then what interesting, there were court fines. These people, it is money that has been collected by courts, and I know, Mr. Speaker, through you, the retired Justice Senator Stuart Malzayo understands this. These were court fees that had been collected. I don't know why people would want it to cut down, yet they should have been given, like the way cities and others impose fines within the courts that are within that particular, Mr. Speaker. Even in museum, we need to see Sinjatrophas. They were, Mr. Speaker, the history of medieval times. We need these young men and women need to know the history of Kenya. They need to know what is happening. When I come to Coast, we need to have proper museums in Kilifi, in Kwale, where we can understand about blue economy. When you come to Nandi, Mr. Speaker, and I continue to wish well the heroes of Kenya, including Koitalel Arap Samoe, which are one of the remnants that is remaining, Mr. Speaker, that we are proud. Yes, and Jean Maria Serone, Mr. Speaker, the firebrand, among the 7 bearded sisters who built the foundation of this parliament, Mr. Speaker, that we need to celebrate our heroes. We need to learn. When I want to come to Coast, I want to go to museum and know Mekatilili Wamenza, who was she? What did she fight for? How was the past? Yes, those things that Stuart Maasai, Senator, is saying, Mr. Speaker. When I want to learn about the history of Maasai, I need to walk into a Narok museum and be able to understand how they ate, their cultures, their values. Why is it that Maasai women are very beautiful, Mr. Speaker? But they are not as beautiful as from Nandi. Mr. Speaker, those are, we need to understand, Mr. Speaker, that what is happening across, Mr. Speaker, we need to be told, Mr. Speaker, the first railway I normally see here in Nairobi, how the first railway, the man-eaters of Savo, we need to understand. And it can only happen within the county setup, Mr. Speaker. Number 5, Mr. Speaker, was on the road maintenance levy fund, that is 10 billion, Mr. Speaker. I want to still insist. Kera and Kura are unconstitutional. They are illegal road bodies. And in fact, I want to agree, I know there is a matter in court, Mr. Speaker, on this matter. Kera and Kura are unconstitutional. It should be scrapped. It can neither be national roads or county roads, Mr. Speaker. We are tired. You find a road is being done by Kera, the governor comes and puts a signpost that is done by the county. A road done by county, Kura comes and puts it, Mr. Speaker. Let the road maintenance levy fund of 10 billion go to counties so that counties can improve their centers, Mr. Speaker. We want, when you are working in center in Mandera, Mr. Speaker, anywhere in Homa Bay, in Kakamega, in Kilifi, in Kwale, in Lamu, Mr. Speaker, those centers can be improved by the counties because that 10 million through roads maintenance levy fund should be given, Mr. Speaker, so that it becomes very easy. Let us, Mr. Speaker, and I think the only way we can agree the functionality of national trunk roads, transboundary roads, is by having only Kenya National Highway Authority. But for Kera and Kura, we should avoid this duplication, Mr. Speaker. And that is why it is important, Mr. Speaker, that the transfer of functions under fourth schedule in our Constitution 2010, Mr. Speaker, is very critical. Why do we have Kera and have Kura, yet most of those small centers, Mr. Speaker, just in 1 second, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, allow me to support this motion and thank the Finance and Budget for rejecting these amendments. And I also reject in total, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Now, honorable senators, before I allow the next speaker to take to the floor, allow me to make the following communication. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of a visiting delegation of Kabianga University in Kericho County, comprising of 6 lecturers and 100 students. Now, honorable senators, in keeping with our tradition of warmly welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a heartfelt welcome to the delegation, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a productive and enjoyable visit. I thought I saw the Senator for Kericho. I will, in his absence, I will allow the majority whip under 1 minute to extend a word of welcome to the delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the honor to acknowledge the presence in the House today of this delegation. Mr. Speaker, the importance of education, and especially university education, cannot be gainsaid. I want to welcome them and encourage the students and the lecturers, of course, to ensure that they should not just be at the university, but they should come out of the university with quality education. Lecturers, we want to appeal to you as the leadership of this country that we are starting to have a culture of fake degrees from River Road. This must be checked, and you are at the center of it. Secondly, we have had many people complain, Mr. Speaker, about buying of marks by students, ending up giving us half-baked professionals. This, as leadership of the country, we cannot accept or entertain. I therefore want to invite them to find time to see the quality of leadership in this House and in this history of Parliament. The best legislators have always been people with good education. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and welcome.
Thank you. The Honorable Beatrice Kenya.
Honorable Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to welcome the team from the university. Honorable Speaker, there's some research that recently came my way that says...
Honorable Beatrice Kenya, yeah. You have the floor to contribute to that motion. The delegation has already been in, yes. They've already been welcomed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
To contribute on the motion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand down that chance. I will do the next time.
Thank you. Honorable Abbas Sheikh Mohammed. Senator Abbas, the floor is yours, Senator Abbas. You may proceed to contribute to this motion.
Honorable Speaker, thank you so much. I'm actually interrupted by consultation. Honorable Speaker, I wish to contribute to this mediation. the consideration of the mediation of money for the counties. Honorable Speaker, I think what I'm saying now is that our counterparts have now not been very serious on these issues. One thing you know, Honorable Speaker, the Senate funds for the Senate has already been reduced so greatly. the fund going to counties are reduced. So while the National Assembly is looking for more money for the CDF, the National Government Constituency Fund, they keep on reducing funds for the counties and funds for the Senate and other institutions. Honorable Speaker, 85% of this money, of the national money that has been collected from the taxpayers, is going to National Assembly, national government operations. But unfortunately, even the counties have received less than what they were supposed to get. Already 20 billion has been reduced for the money that we allocated, though now it is with the mediation committee. Honorable Speaker, one thing I can say is that the road maintenance levy is reduced by 10.5 billion shillings. Honorable, as you are aware, it's only the Kenya that comes under the national government. Kura is actually doing the work on in the municipalities. Municipality belongs to the counties. And therefore, that fund should have even gone earlier to the counties. The second one is, again, Kera. That is also a rural horse that is within the mandate of the counties. And this same fund has been reduced by 10.5 billion shillings. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, as a result of the previous El Nino, so many roads have been damaged, and most of the roads in the rural areas are not potable today. And therefore, reducing this fund actually has not been fair. One other thing is, Honorable Speaker, minerals in this country is not found in the, in the national office. It is found in the community lands. Land owned by the communities is where we find the minerals. And most of this land is actually managed by the counties. And therefore, that money was again reduced 1.1 billion shillings. I think this is not fair, that we need to get even more money, that the money that is being actually generated from within the areas of the counties should go back and belong back to the counties. One other thing is the funds for the court fines was also reduced $30 million, 30 million shillings. This is also not in order. Three, Honorable Speaker, there are counties that have not, are still living in all the county council offices. The county of Tharaka-Nithi, Lamu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Isiolo, and some of the offices have not been done up to now, 12 years down the line. So it is not fair for the money for the 528 million shillings to be removed from the budget. Those guys are living actually in makeshifts. Honorable Speaker, one other thing is the issue to do with the community health workers. The community health workers actually is actually very important community services and health services that makes these same people that have been engaged the other day have not been paid. And what they're getting is just a minimum money. It's just a very peanut, 5,000 shillings per month. But however, it means a lot to the Kenyans, especially in the rural areas. This money, these people who have been employed now are able to reach every household within the rural areas. Honorable Speaker, I think that it's not been fair now to reduce the money. I think that it has been done, that they reduced from 3.2 billion to 2.5 billion. That's 1 billion shillings difference. Those people actually are employed. They even don't have means of transport. They do work on their own. They hire borders, and they're not able to get even their salaries in time. Therefore, reducing that base of money for the health workers, government health workers, is actually also not acceptable. Honorable Speaker, I think what is happening in our National Assembly is to provoke this House. What is happening is actually to see that counties are not supposed to work. What they're saying is that I think what they want to do is they want us to do away with the counties, and that should not be happening. Therefore, this House has the responsibility to defend the counties, and the money must be brought back to them to all the counties must get the right resources. With those few remarks, I beg to reject the amendments of Your Honorable Speaker.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also rise to join my colleagues to support the report by the Finance and Budget Committee to reject amendments by National Assembly. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it looks like our colleagues in National Assembly, they really don't know what happens at the counties. And the first thing when they get such a report, the first item they want to slash, to reduce, is what goes to the counties, Honorable Speaker. You know, some of us, about 11 of us in this House, Honorable Speaker, were members of National Assembly from 2013 to 2022. And now when you come here, you realize the need for protecting the devolution, protecting the counties, and giving them resources. Because, Honorable Speaker, there are no people in the counties, and we don't have others for national government. These are the same people that we serve, and I believe it is important that maybe we need to engage very closely with our colleagues in National Assembly so that they understand, so that they give priority in terms of resource allocation to the counties. This is actually one of the reasons why maybe as a House, we need to fight and agitate for budget making process to come to this House so that it goes to the two houses, Honorable Speaker, because they believe, because they have that weapon, they can do whatever they do, and we go into mediation, Honorable Speaker. You can imagine last year, we sent 385 billion to the counties, and now we are agreed and raised to 400.1 billion. Now they have reduced to 380 billion. I mean, these are not serious. And at the same time, they are raising the resources that are going to national government, CDF and GOV. Honorable Speaker, this is serious. In fact, I want to touch a few items. Our colleagues have talked about early this year, because of the universal health coverage and share issues on shift, we employed close to about 100,000 community health promoters. The national government are contributing 2,500 and the counties 2,500, making 5,000. This is not even salary, Honorable Speaker, because the minimum wage is way above 15,000. But this is just a stipend, an allowance for them to move around. And they have reduced to 2.58 billion. So it means there are some CHPs, community health promoters, who are already helping our people on the ground, and they'll go without allowance. How do they expect them to support? Basically, it means some villages, some communities will not have community health promoters to do the basic health issues, Honorable Speaker. So this we reject, and we have to return back what they removed, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, another issue that I wanted to touch on is road maintenance levy fund. This is a fund that the other day, the CS Transport and Roads cassetted and they increased from 18 shillings per litre to 25 shillings per litre. And our colleagues have removed over 10 billion. If anything, they should actually have doubled and send this money to the counties so that our roads, feeder roads within the counties are motorable. Our farmers are able to take the produce to the market. We're able to take our animals to also to the market, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, we refuse this. And we have said, Kura basically is domiciled in our municipalities. What business do we have to send this money to Kura? We should send the money to basically our counties. Honorable Speaker, Kera, it reads Kenya Rural Roads Authority. Where is rural? Is rural in national government or it's in the counties, especially interior roads? So this money must go to our counties, Honorable Speaker, and we demand that their reinstatement of the 10.5, and if possible, we raise it maybe to 15 billion, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is an issue we have talked about. We need to have industrial parks within our counties to spur the economy, to generate employment for our youth. And there was a conditional grant of 250 million for each of our counties. that they had already identified a piece of land to put up the industrial parks, and the counties contribute 250 million. Honorable Speaker, Elgeyo Marakwet County already, our MCAs had agreed with the executive of the county and set aside 250 million. You can imagine now, this money from the national portion, national government portion, has been removed. So what will happen? So it means basically our youth will continue missing opportunities of employment opportunities, Honorable Speaker. So basically, we need this money to be reinstated so that we can generate employment. You know what happened here, sometimes June this year, 25th, even 27th. Our youth were they came to Parliament because they were angry with us. They are demanding for opportunities. So we should not give them another opportunity to come back to Parliament, Honorable Speaker. We need to reinstate the resources that are going to the counties. Honorable Speaker, we have talked about health also. Our hospitals don't have resources. During COVID, we gave money to the counties to do ICUs. And if you go around the counties now, Honorable Speaker, you'll be surprised that they are not reporting that they have ICU beds. What happened to the resources that we also sent, the conditional grants that we gave out during COVID time? Those ICUs. What their counties are complaining about is they don't have resources. They don't have nurses who are specifically trained or to operate ICUs. So we need more resources so that our counties can have ICU beds, Honorable Speaker. In fact, I was surprised that, Honorable Speaker, there are 5 counties, 2012, 2013, 14, they were given resources to put up county headquarters. Elgeyo Marakwet County was not one of them. Elgeyo Marakwet County, the county headquarters and the county assemblies are in reserves, and they have continued to be there. In fact, I have met the finance committee several times. We have discussed with the devolution committee, Honorable Speaker, that we need to allocate additional conditional grants to our counties, especially those who do not have county headquarters or modern county assemblies, Honorable Speaker. But National Assembly goes ahead and even removes from the first 5 counties that they were given. The county headquarters are not complete. If you go to Tharaka-Nithi, our colleague Mofa is here, he said the thing is incomplete. It's a shell. So basically, by not giving them what had been proposed, we are saying, let the projects continue to stall. I mean, this is unfair. In fact, they are becoming more expensive to complete the projects because of our insensitivity of not allocating the resources, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we need to be champions of devolution. And to be champions of devolution is to reject anything that reduces resources that are going to our counties, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are those other functions that are supposed, Honorable Speaker, to be handed to the counties, and the resources must follow the functions. How can we now reduce further instead of giving out more resources? Last year, the libraries were given out to the counties, resources followed, and this year I'm told they are removing it. So how do they expect the libraries within the counties to pay the employees, to buy new books, and ensure the libraries have adequate books for our young people to go and read and do research, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, I beg to support the report and say we reject these amendments, and we also urge our colleagues who will be in the mediation committee, put your foot down, don't accept anything less than, if it is the worst, maybe the 391 they had proposed earlier. Otherwise, we need to go back to 400 billion so that our counties can function. And we want to give notice to the CS, also National Treasury, who was our colleague in National Assembly, that please, the law is very clear. Resources must be sent by the 15th of every month to the counties. Since July this year, Honorable Speaker, our counties have not received any resources from the exchequer. How do they expect them to function? How do they expect them to pay salaries? The reason why we have a lot of pending bills within the counties, it is because of this. Another issue is own source revenue also. We need to give also our governors notice. They need to put in proper systems, revenue systems, so that they can collect. Some of them are still collecting manually. And if they collect manually, you expect to know, to know where that the funds are going to go to. We actually support that we can have one unified revenue management system for the counties, just the way they have IPMIs for expenditure, so that, you know, they seal any loopholes, any leakages for revenue collection. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support the report and reject the amendments from National Assembly. Thank you.
Senator Wambua.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to also add a voice on this report that was tabled in the House by our Committee on Finance and Budget. The Speaker, from the onset, I wish to state that from very many fronts, devolution has come under attack. The Speaker, you will realize even from the comments of other senators that every county government in Kenya is crying for disbursements from the National Treasury. Because the Speaker, and it was tested before, when some of us were toddlers, and I think Senator Alwale was a grown-up man at that time, the best way of killing devolution was to starve the majimbo of funding. It is being repeated now, Mr. Speaker, that it seems like there is a concerted effort to deny funds to the devolved units of government so that we can kill devolution. The Speaker talked about giving a dog a bad name so that you can kill it. The Speaker, it is clear in our statutes, the Speaker, if there is any disparity or any deficit in the national budget, then you don't touch the allocation to county governments. That the national government takes care of the shortfall in revenue, and you don't touch the allocation to county governments. Now, Speaker, I want to go to the specifics of the report by our committee and begin from the onset to say I am in total support of this report in rejection of the proposed amendments by the National Assembly. Speaker, you begin with the construction of the county headquarters. And you know that this is a conversation that we had even during the regional debate for DORA. And we had said then what will happen is that this financial year, 24-25, the money that has been allocated of 525, that was supposed to be the final allocation to the 5 counties that were given some preferential treatment for the construction of county headquarters, and that if there was going to be a shortfall and they were unable to complete those headquarters, then they were supposed to look for their own other sources of completing the county headquarters. The Speaker, that allocation of 528.1 million has been reduced to 0. Speaker, the net effect of that is that then those county headquarters in the 5 counties, including Isiolo, Nyandarua, I think Lamu, Tharaka-Nithi, what it means then is that those county headquarters their construction then will continue being white elephants in those counties, and a lot of money has been sunk into them. The Speaker, but the most worrying thing about the proposal by the National Assembly to reduce allocations to county governments is in the areas of the share of mineral royalties. Speaker, I want this House to remember, and Senator Alwale would benefit from this, because I believe that in Kakamega there are some mineral resources that are extracted from there. There's gold, he says. You know, this is already realized revenue. It's revenue that is already realized. It's being collected. There is money. And then we are saying that the royalties of the gold that Senator Alwale is talking about from Kakamega, that is supposed to be allocated to Kakamega County, then they get zero out of it. The Speaker, if you ask me, and I don't know which better word I would use, this is actually a proposal that is inviting us to participate in the theft of resources from county governments to the national government. Mr. Speaker, whatever happens, the royalties, the mineral royalties that are shared to the counties where these mines are, at the very least, that amount should remain in the counties, even if for anything else, to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, they are utilized for the development of infrastructure around the mines, even construction of hospitals or roads leading to the mines. Mr. Speaker, that money should not be touched. Mr. Speaker, the other area is in the area of the Road Maintenance Levy Fund, the RMLF. A whopping 10.5 billion Kenya shillings is being reduced to zero. As a Speaker, you know that this fund is established by an act of parliament. And that act of parliament stipulates how the fund will be rolled out. That act of parliament, the Speaker, dictates that both county governments and the national government will take responsibility in maintenance of roads assigned to them. So, the Speaker, if you take away 10.5 billion Kenya shillings from RMLF allocated to counties, what funds will the counties use to maintain roads in their respective jurisdictions? Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I want to stand with the Committee on Finance of the Senate and say that, Mr. Speaker, we should totally reject the proposals to amend the allocations to counties and stick to what we had discussed in Dora, that counties will get their 400 billion Kenya shillings to roll out their functions. And the Speaker, as I conclude, I also want to call upon the Treasury, National Treasury, to ensure that they expedite the release of funds to counties. Speaker, all of us come from counties. We represent the interests of our counties. The Speaker, I can confirm to this House, and I know I'm preaching to the converted, that, Mr. Speaker, the level of suffering in the counties, the county governments, is unbearable. Staff have gone for months without pay. In fact, the Speaker, I know of a county that I will not disclose for now, that the MCRs are actually now threatening to down their tools and stop operations because they have not earned their salaries for the last 3 months. Mr. Speaker, if really this administration, and I see Senator Cherargei all the time telling us that the Kenya Kwanza administration stands for devolution, is very keen on devolution. If this administration really cares about devolution, then, Mr. Speaker, we should hasten the release of funds to county governments. There are no drugs in hospitals. The staff are not being paid their monthly dues. Mr. Speaker, the roads are seriously dilapidated. The supply of water in those counties, Mr. Speaker, basically nothing is happening in our county governments. What these people are doing in the county government is maybe just collecting on-source revenue and paying small little things like fueling cars, moving around. Basically nothing is happening in our counties, Mr. Speaker. I call upon this administration to prioritize the release of funds to county governments. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mofire.
Register my dissatisfaction with the way the National Assembly is handling devolution. Honorable Speaker, our role as a Senate is purely to protect devolution, and it seems there is some prolonged rivalry between the National Assembly and the counties. Honorable Speaker, the two entities normally receive money at various capacities, at various forms. But Honorable Speaker, you notice that the National Assembly, I don't know for what reasons, their intention throughout the 12 years of devolution is to cripple counties. Honorable Speaker, that is one way of diluting our objective as a Senate, because the core responsibility of this House, Honorable Speaker, is to protect devolution, and it is quite disheartening, Honorable Speaker, to notice that we have counties that are really suffering. Because if you go to my county, Raganidi County, which was among the counties that were incepted without the county headquarters, has been without headquarters for the last 12 years, Honorable Speaker. And the county up to now, it's a shell, it's a makeshift, it's just a white elephant. The money was poured there. The building has not been completed. I'm very sure that is what is happening in other counties like Lamu, other counties like I think Nyandarua, I think Nyandarua and Isiolo. You know, Honorable Speaker, there is absolute resolve to cripple devolution, Honorable Speaker. And it is the time, Honorable Speaker, as a House, we must stamp authority over what is supposed to be executed by this House, Honorable Speaker, and make sure that the devolution is properly and is strongly protected for that matter. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to agree with the Committee on Finance that our resolve to give counties money must stand, and we may not be able to accept any other arrangements where the National Assembly would sit down and slash money meant for counties, Honorable Speaker. Quite a number of activities, quite a number of projects, quite a number of departments are now devolved. It is very saddening, Honorable Speaker, today, if you go to counties, counties are turned out to be just shells, no operations, no anything. People have gone without salaries for months. So, Honorable Speaker, I think we must make a statement through the Exchequer, the Treasury, that we are subjecting these counties to total suffering, and it's important, Honorable Speaker, that we register our dissatisfaction to that effect. And Honorable Speaker, if you go to counties like Advocacy and so many other counties that I don't want to mention, you know, the government has been relying on overdraft from banks, from some local arrangements with the local banks to pay salaries. So I don't know, Honorable Speaker, for what reasons do we have to subject our people to this level of suffering? And it's important, Honorable Speaker, we must make sure that as a House, because that is our core business, to protect devolution, to give the necessary oversight over those funds, that we must call upon the Treasury and the Exchequer and the government itself to make sure that our counties are functional, and to make sure that they are aware of funded, because all the department, Honorable Speaker, all the activities are carried in counties. You know, Honorable Speaker, I want to agree with Senator Cheragei. You know, I don't know for what reason, I think we must have some arrangements where, you know, the National Assembly has absorbed the role of everything. The carer, you know, the roles that are done even in counties, the government has no say. The member of parliament would say, this is my project, Kura, this is my project, anything that is being brought to counties, the National Assembly would want to lay some hands and claim its ownership. And Honorable Speaker, I don't know for what reasons that the National Assembly has absorbed the role of every activity in deep in the counties. Honorable Speaker, we must stand our ground and make sure that we protect devolution, and for that matter, I agree with the Committee on Finance to make sure that we retain our 400 million money that is meant for counties, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika. Nataka kwanza kupongeza kamati yetu ya fedha ya Seneti kwa kazi nzuri Bwana Spika wanayoitekeleza. Lakini Bwana Spika, ni jambo la kuvunja moyo sana kwa sababu ukiangalia hela ambazo kamati hiyo ilikuwa imetenga. Mswada huu ulipoenda katika bunge la kitaifa walipunguza hizi hela kwa bilioni 46.5 Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, ni kana kwamba waelewi mambo ya ugatuzi yanavyoendelea Bwana Spika. Kwa sababu baada ya kupunguza pesa hizi kwa kiwango hiki Bwana Spika, unaona majengo ambayo yalipaswa kujengwa katika county zetu headquarter Bwana Spika. Unapaswa sasa hakuna hela zozote Bwana Spika zimebaki Bwana Spika. Vile vile Bwana Spika, ukitembea wakati huu katika gatuzi zetu zote za humu nchini, unapata barabara ziko katika hali mbovu kabisa Bwana Spika, kwa sababu mvua tayari imeziadhiri, lakini bunge la kitaifa Bwana Spika hawana hata ile njia ya kuangalia ni kupunguza hela ambazo zinaenda katika gatuzi zetu Bwana Spika, kupunguza kwa bilioni 10.5 Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo ukitembea katika gatuzi zetu unapata hakuna barabara Bwana Spika. Vile vile kwa sababu tunategemea hela hizi kwa ununuzi wa madawa Bwana Spika, unapata hospitali zetu hazina madawa Bwana Spika, watu hawajalipwa Bwana Spika, na ilhali kazi yetu kama Seneti ni kulinda na kutetea gatuzi zetu Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, hatutakubaliana na mtu yoyote atakayekuwa kazi yake ni kujaribu kupunguza hela ama kuonyesha kana kwamba yeye anapigana Bwana Spika na ugatuzi. Bwana Spika, kamati yetu ilijitolea Bwana Spika na vile vile kuleta maendeleo katika sehemu zetu za mashinani Bwana Spika. Unapata kuna vile viwanda vidogo vidogo ambavyo vilipaswa vitengenezwe Bwana Spika. Mfano ukitembea kama Rumuruti, tayari tulikuwa tumetenga sehemu ambayo itakayotumika ndio kuweza kutengeneza hivi viwanda vidogo Bwana Spika. Lakini pesa ambazo zilikuwa zimewekwa na kamati yetu bilioni 5.2 zilipunguzwa mpaka bilioni 2 Bwana Spika. Unapata yale mambo ambayo yangefanywa na zile hela yamepungua, hata mengine hayataweza kutendeka Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka kusema ya kwamba hii kamati yetu ya Seneti ilifanya kazi nzuri, lakini wenzetu wa bunge la kitaifa wanaonekana Bwana Spika wao ni kupinga ugatuzi usiendelee. Bwana Spika, mimi nafikiria pengine wanapinga ndio hii CDFA waweze kufanya hiyo kazi ile ambayo ingefanywa na magavana Bwana Spika, lakini hatutakubali Bwana Spika. Ukiangalia hata wale wasaidizi wa uguzi katika pale nyanjani Bwana Spika, kwa Kiingereza wanaitwa CHPs, hawajalipwa Bwana Spika, wanasononeka, wanazunguka na ilhali wanafanya kazi nzuri Bwana Spika. Ukiangalia Seneti ilikuwa imewatengia bilioni 5.2 Bwana Spika, wale ambao ni wa bunge la kitaifa wakapunguza Bwana Spika bila kuangalia kwamba kazi nzuri wale wafanyikazi wa nyanjani wa afya wanayofanya pale nyanjani. Nakumbuka hii ni sehemu kubwa ambayo imetengwa na hawa ndio tunakaotegemea, kwa sababu kabla mtu hajaenda hospitalini Bwana Spika anapaswa kuonekana na hawa maafisa wa afya wa nyanjani. Lakini unapata pesa ambazo zilikuwa zimetengwa bilioni 5.2 imepunguzwa mpaka bilioni 2.5 Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo mimi ningetaka Bwana Spika sisi tusimame kidete na wale ambao kamati ambayo itatengenezwa ili waweze kuelewana Bwana Spika, wasibanduke, wasimame kidete, wakae vile ambavyo Seneti ilisema, kwa sababu kazi kuu ya Seneti Bwana Spika ni kuilinda na kuzitetea gatuzi zetu Bwana Spika. Na mtu yoyote Bwana Spika ukimuuliza katika Jamhuri ya Kenya atakwambia ukitembea katika gatuzi zetu kazi zimeonekana kufanywa Bwana Spika. Pengine unapata mahali ambapo hakungetengenezwa barabara yote Bwana Spika, kunapatikana barabara, daraja inaonekana imetengenezwa na gatuzi zetu Bwana Spika. Hata sehemu zingine unapata hali ya afya imeweza kuimarishwa na gatuzi zetu Bwana Spika. Lakini Bwana Spika, ikiwa hatutawapatia hela zozote Bwana Spika, tutakuwa hata sisi kama Seneti Bwana Spika tumezembea na kulemewa katika kazi yetu. Lakini Bwana Spika, mimi najua ya kwamba kamati inayoongozwa na Roba imefanya kazi nzuri, pamoja na wale wanakamati wengine wamefanya kazi nzuri. Wale ambao wanataka kutukata miguu ni hii jumba la kitaifa, National Assembly, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo mimi naunga mkono na nataka kusema asanti kwa kamati yetu ya Seneti ya fedha ambayo ilifanya kazi nzuri. Nashukuru na nasema asanti Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also make my presentation on this very important bill, which is the County Additional Allocation Bill 2024. Mr. Speaker, as you know that this bill is supposed to allocate additional funds to counties apart from the shareable revenue, which we allocate through other pieces of legislation. And as the other members have said, that this bill is actually designed to reduce the monies that we had passed in the earlier bill that we had passed in this House. They are reducing the money that we had passed to the industrial parks, which were 250 million for each county. Now they are reducing it to 105 million for each county. They are further reducing the money that we passed to go to community health promoters. They are actually removing all the money that is supposed to go to mineral royalties. They are also doing the same to road maintenance, fuel levy, and also the court fines, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if there is any evidence that the National Assembly is the biggest threat to devolution in this country, this is one of the evidence, Mr. Speaker. The National Assembly is the biggest threat to devolution in this country. And something has to be done about this, Mr. Speaker. And that's something will be done by us, senators. I think we need to sit down, caucus, and find out ways of stopping the National Assembly from being the real enemies of devolution in this country. If you go ahead and reduce money that is supposed to go to counties in the division of revenue bill from 400 to 380 billion, and you stay in that county, what are you doing? Some of these members of parliament want to become governors. Some want to become senators. How will they govern counties which have less money, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I think we have to call out the National Assembly. I'm even informed, Mr. Speaker, that the JLAC committee of the National Assembly has come up with a bill, the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2024, where they are questioning the existence of two houses of parliament. They are questioning the existence of Senate. That is very shameful, Mr. Speaker. And that committee has serious members that I respect. People like Murungara, people like Otienda Amolo, respectable lawyers in this country. They must be told that you cannot remove Senate by a mere committee in the National Assembly. You have to go to the referendum, Mr. Speaker, and seek the views of Kenyans on how to do it. It is clearly stipulated under Article 255 of the Constitution that any amendment touching on devolution has to go to the people via referendum. So all these designs, Mr. Speaker, are being done after the court issued a ruling on CDF. And I want to agree with the courts. The members of parliament have no business managing funds. They only have three functions, Mr. Speaker: legislation, oversight, and representation. They have no business moving around, building schools, using public money and telling people this is our money. They have no business moving around doing roads. They are not engineers. They are legislators, Mr. Speaker. I think I agree with the courts that CDF should be a devolved fund and should not be managed by members of the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, it saddens me that the community health promoters, they do a wonderful job in our villages. They are moving around looking for the sick people in the villages at very minimal fee. Very minimal fee, Mr. Speaker. And now this House passed money to the CHPs. And then the members of parliament do not see what the CHPs are doing. They go ahead and cut their money. That means that the stipend that is paid to the CHPs is going to reduce. Like in my county, the stipend is going to reduce by 9 million shillings, Mr. Speaker. That means each CSP is going to earn 500 shillings less that he has been getting. That little money that they have been getting, Mr. Speaker, is going to go down by 500 shillings. Members of parliament who come from my county, I see them all the time walking around with the CHPs, asking them to even do some tasks for them. And then they come to this house and they reduce the money that is supposed to go to the CHP. Mr. Speaker, I say, shame on them. Shame on them. They have gone ahead and reduced the money that is supposed to go to road maintenance fuel levy. Mr. Speaker, this is unacceptable. They have gone ahead and removed all the money that counties are supposed to get from court fines, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is unacceptable. The industrial parks have not taken off in most counties. Mr. Speaker, in my own county, they launched the industrial park at Luanda. This industrial park, nothing apart from the groundbreaking which was done by Moses Kuria, nothing has taken off because there is no money. The money that is supposed to be given by the county assembly has not been approved. The national government has not sent any money. And now we were to get 250 million. Now it is going to be reduced further to 105 million. This project, Mr. Speaker, it is a wonderful idea, but I am worried that this project is going to be a white elephant. Because if you have members of parliament who sit there and look at this project and they don't see any sense, they go and reduce the money, then this project, we don't see it succeeding, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even as we talk about the National Assembly, reducing the money that is meant for additional allocation, we must also talk about what is happening in our counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our counties are not functional. They are not functional. The governors are now staying in Nairobi. The CECs for finance and CEOs are staying in Nairobi because there is no money. And even the little money they have gotten lately for July, they are unable to access it because of the inefficiency at the Office of the Controller of Budget. So they are basically here in Nairobi, moving from Treasury, going to COB, and going back to their liaison offices here in Nairobi. And staff are not being paid, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we cannot sit here pretty as senators, and our counties are not functional because money has not been sent to them. Article 219 of the Constitution is very clear that the shareable revenue should be sent to the counties without undue delay and without deduction. If you go for 4 months, 5 months without receiving the money from the national government, Mr. Speaker, this is already a violation of Article 219 of the Constitution. Honorable members, honorable senators, I think we must do something extraordinary. I remember the senates that came before us. At one point, they went to court and they marched to the CJ's office, Mr. Speaker. That was a serious commitment towards ensuring that Article 96 of the Constitution is complied with. Mr. Speaker, even as we talk about this, we must also re-examine Article 249 of the Constitution, our role in the process of budget making. Mr. Speaker, we must revisit this article of the Constitution because it's very clear that Parliament, and Parliament includes both the Senate and the National Assembly, shall allocate funds to commission and independent offices. And we have over 12 commissions, Mr. Speaker. That is already a law that we have been given by the Constitution in budget-making process. Why are we not taking up that, Mr. Speaker? So that at least we have a voice in the budget-making process. Because the National Assembly has taken advantage of its powers to try and frustrate us. I think it is important for us to lay a claim on Article 249 of the Constitution and say that any budget that is passed without adherence to Article 249 of the Constitution, that budget is null and void and is illegal. Mr. Speaker, I think this House must rise to the occasion and demonstrate that we are the true defenders of Article 96 of the Constitution, which provides that Senate exists to protect counties. We talk about it here, but we do very little. I think it's a high time we had a Kamkunji and discuss these things, Mr. Speaker, before we are elbowed out by the enemies of devolution who sit in the National Assembly. And every day they're thinking on how to derail the Senate. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support the report by the Finance Committee and totally reject the bill from the National Assembly.
Senator Okoit Omtata.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the occasion to contribute to this report, which I fully support. Mr. Speaker, sir, the question of revenue taken down to counties is at the heart of the Kenyan state, because the Kenyan state is defined as divided in the counties given in the first schedule. That territory is supposed to be governed by both the national and the county governments. And in the allocation of their shares, 15% of the total revenue, at least 15% is supposed to be devolved. But in the usual machinations of the National Assembly, when they enacted the CRA Act, they defined revenue available to counties as excluding certain revenues. So already they went against the constitutional position to reduce the amount of money that's supposed to be devolved as an automatic percentage. Number two, they deliberately lag behind in terms of auditing the accounts, the approved the audited accounts, such that when we come to divide this money that comes out in the division of revenue, we work behind. We are behind by so much time, and you'll find that the budget of the current year has grown by leaps and bounds, but we are using a budget that's about 4 or 5 years late. So all those things have turned out to frustrate the amount of money that goes to counties. Over and above that, Mr. Speaker, sir, they come up with these machinations where they think that the counties are at their mercy, and so they should reduce the money on the whim. There is no study, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the National Assembly has presented to this House to show that the reductions are scientific. It's not an art. These are facts and figures. What is informing their figures when they say they are going to go down? Ours at least were informed by the Commission on Revenue Allocation and stuff like that. We have got studies that have been done on the ground why we need this money to go down and as additional funds to deal with this and that. You don't have any scientific data that the National Assembly has used to arrive at a position that the allocations should be reduced. And that's why it should be given, it should be rejected with a resounding no from this House, because it is a document authored on the whims of men, and men who think that they can roll or wrap this country around their small finger and still all will be well with them. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the amounts of money being allocated to these counties, they're just millions of shillings. I've not seen any county, most of the counties are just being given millions of shillings. In fact, some are just in tens of millions, very few in hundreds. So you wonder why would anybody want to interfere with the very little money that is going to these counties? Mr. Speaker, sir, I pray that the rejection of the proposals by the National Assembly be upheld by this House, and we go by the earlier position, whereby the counties at least get the money that the Senate has struggled to allocate them. This attempt, when the Finance Bill 2024 was rejected by the Gen Z and other Kenyans, and His Excellency the President conceded by returning it back to Parliament, that should have been an exercise that went alongside the budget or the Appropriation Act. That Appropriation Act survived in the absence of the finance bill that was supposed to finance it. And that's why the problem begins. We should have gone back to the drawing board and done a good thing. Because from where I come from, ideologically, not ethnically, regionally, or even sharing some roads with Khalwale, but where I come from ideologically and where I don't share much with Khalwale, it is very clear, Honorable Senator Khalwale, don't get offense, just a statement of fact, we don't share much ideologically. But from where I come from ideologically, it is said that if something is worth doing, it is worth doing well. And so, if the President got convinced that the Finance Act that was supposed to finance his budget had a problem, then he should have rejected both the finance bill and also the appropriation bill for the current budget cycle, so that Parliament would go back and look at the two bills and then proceed to see what can be done, what adjustments can be made. But when he rejected one and ascended one to the other into law, then we create this quagmire whereby we are saying, starve so and so, starve so and so to finance so and so. The other thing, my Lord, Mr. Speaker, sir, our budget, also from where I sit, I always do a spreadsheet analysis of these budgets. And already we had identified more than 100 billion shillings in that budget that the president signed into law. That is basically money that has got no functions to perform. What the National Assembly should have done then would be to sit down with a tooth comb through the budget, remove what has become, in popular parlance, called budgetary corruption. There are very, very many things that are loaded into that budget by the Treasury that really serve no purpose. And if we did a cleanup of the budget, Madam Speaker, sorry, when I began it was Mr. Speaker, Sana, I can see it's Madam Speaker. I don't know if I'm allowed to switch. I continue with Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I be guided, please? Can I speak? I ask Majority Leader to guide me, to inform me, just for this one time in the universe. Kindly, Majority Leader, guide me.
You have to refer to Madam Speaker. And
Okay, I'm well guided. You know, I like being guided when I don't know, I'm very honest. So thank you, Madam Speaker. I was saying, if we are to carry out a forensic audit of the budget, we would not have to go to a point of saying, cut this, cut that. We would simply say, get out the dead weight, clean it up, and you'll find that you would have even more money to add to the counties. And I think maybe that's what the president had in mind, if I may give him some latitude and the benefit of doubt. I believe that that could be what His Excellency had in mind when he decided to cut out the finance bill, but retain the Appropriation Act. So that when he sent it back for a relook, the National Assembly should not be looking at simply cutting here and there. It should have looked at the question of cleaning up that budget. It should have looked at the question of eliminating audited budgetary corruption. And I can volunteer that there are monies there which I said we have isolated in my women and my team, more than 100 billion shillings that are in that budget, which is much more than what we are trying to cut here, that is being stolen, that's just being put there to be carried away. So, Madam Speaker, it's my position that as the committee has recommended a total rejection of what the National Assembly has done, we speak with one voice in a bipartisan manner, and we make sure that what should be done is for Parliament to set up a special purpose committee to go and look at that budget, ferret out corruption, and give us a lean and clean budget that will have excess money that can again be added to the counties, not what we are having right now. Madam Speaker, Senator Osotsi, while contributing, made a very, very important installment in reference to Article 249, Clause 3, which requires this House to participate in the budget-making process, and specifically as regards constitutional commissions and independent offices. But there's also Article 239 on the security institutions, which requires Parliament to participate in every aspect of the security, the national security organs. Part of it is their budgets. I don't remember seeing the budget of the military or the budget of the police come to the Senate for scrutiny and approval. Yet Article 239 or 36 around there requires that matters concerning national security organs shall be adjudicated by Parliament. And Parliament, as Senator Soti rightly observed, includes the Senate and the National Assembly. So there are very many things there. If you go to Article 221 of the Constitution, you will find that the budget of the Parliamentary Service Commission is among the budget estimates that are taken to the National Assembly when the budget is being estimates are being considered. How then does the Senate participate in the budget of Parliament if it is not allowed to participate in the budget making process? So the budget of the Parliamentary Service Commission cannot be adjudicated or be determined just by the National Assembly alone. Also, under Article 221, they bring in the budget of the judiciary. We have got three arms of government that check each other. How does the Senate participate in checking the judiciary if we don't look at the budget of the judiciary? So there are very, very many provisions in the Constitution that require us to participate as a House in the budget making process. Otherwise we become irrelevant, and maybe we should get to a point whereby we need to look at all the laws that were made after 2013 in terms of public finance. That's why the problem is the Public Finance Management Act was enacted by the National Assembly alone in 2012. After 2013, there have been many amendments that were made that technically took away the powers of this House. For example, there's the question of the CEO of the Parliamentary Service Commission, whom the Constitution clearly says is the clerk of the Senate, and the Speaker of the National Assembly is the chair. When you go to the Public Finance Management Act, they decided to create three executives, whereby you have the Speaker of the Senate, and then the clerk of the Senate, the clerk of the National Assembly, and the clerk of some animal called the Joint Services, the Director of Joint Services, being accounting officers. And that has undermined the Senate. We don't have a voice. So when you go to the Parliamentary Service Commission, our clerk, who is supposed to be the final authority, has got no say because he has been undermined through the Public Finance Management Act, whereby the National Assembly created three centers of power in the Parliamentary Service Commission. All these things need to be revisited so that this House can assert its place. But as a result of the budget, we must stand firm and ensure that what is rightfully supposed to be for devolution, including looking at the Commission on Revenue Act being amended to define revenue as it is defined in the Constitution, not as the National Assembly would like to have it, whereby we begin off at a disadvantage by sharing less than what we are entitled to as a Senate, and our counties then continue starving. Some have said that there's corruption in the counties and staff. Yes, but you have got the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We have got the DCI. We have got the OCS. We have got all these organs that are supposed to deal with corruption. That is not our problem. Go and deal with those governors and the county officials where there's corruption. Our business is to ensure that the right amount of money is going down to the counties. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I am very, very happy for the opportunity you have given me on this afternoon to address this House, and I fully support the report of the committee that we reject in total the attempt to reduce the amount of money going to the counties as proposed by the National Assembly. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. With those few remarks, I support the report.
Thank you, Senator Okia. Senator Wafula Wakori.
Honorable Speaker, langu ni kuunga mkono ripoti ya Senate kuhusiana na makadirio ya fedha ambayo tumeyasoma hivi sasa katika jumba la Senate. Mheshimiwa Speaker, muda mchache uliopita, Mheshimiwa Speaker, katika jumba hili la Senate niliweza kuuliza maswali hususan kandarasi za madaktari mashinani, malipo ya madaktari mashinani na mazingira ambamo madaktari hawa mashinani wanafanya kazi katika kaunti ya Bungoma. Na nilipouliza maswali haya, misururu ya maswali yalichipuka kutoka katika kaunti mbalimbali humu Kenya, ikiwa kwamba madaktari mashinani Kenya nzima kwa zaidi ya miezi 10 hawajapata marupurupu yao. Na nimeona leo kiini cha shida za madaktari mashinani ni kwamba kuna viongozi katika jumba fulani hapa Kenya ambao wanadhani kwamba wana uwezo wa kuhujumu, kuwatesa, kuwagandamiza madaktari mashinani kana kwamba hawalipi ushuru na hakuna kazi wanafanya. Mimi naomba jumba la Senate tusimame kidete, tuhakikishe kwamba fedha ambazo Wakenya wanatozwa kama ushuru zinatumika kuwalipa madaktari mashinani, kuboresha afya mashinani katika mazahanati na hospitali za Kenya, na vile vile kuandikwa kazi kwa madaktari ambao wamebobea na wana tajriba na wako tayari kufanya kazi. Mheshimiwa Speaker, tukiangalia katika kupunguzwa kwa fedha zinazoenda katika kaunti, ni kusema kwamba shule za chekechea na vyuo anuwai katika nchi ya Kenya hazitaweza kuimarishwa, kujengwa na watoto wetu kupata masomo jinsi ilivyopangwa katika waasisi wa ugatuzi. Mimi naomba Wakenya waangalie jumba la Senate. Hatutatishwa, hatutayumbayumba. Ni kuhakikisha kwamba ugatuzi lazima uwajibikiwe, na hivi kwamba magavana tunapowatetea kupata pesa lazima waje hapa na watueleze, isiwe kwamba tunatoa ilani kwa Inspector Generali kama tulivyotoa juzi kwamba gavana wa Isiolo wakamatwe na kuletwa jumla mzima ili kujibu masuala ya wajibikaji. Tukiangalia miundombinu kama barabara, Mheshimiwa Speaker, katika kaunti za nchi ya Kenya zinahitaji fedha. Hatuwezi sema kwamba magavana na viongozi wa wadi ma MCA wachukue jembe na vifaa mbalimbali waende watengeneze barabara. Lazima serikali ihakikishe mabilioni ambayo wanapunguza kutoka mapendekezo tuliopeana ya zaidi ya bilioni 400, pesa zitolewe, tujenge barabara, tujenge vivukio ili kaunti zetu wa Kenya waweze kufurahia matokeo ya jasho lao. Nikimalizia, Mheshimiwa Speaker, Wakenya waliandamana na kuleta bugudha katika baraste na nchi nzima. Walitaka uwajibikaji, walitaka utendakazi, walitaka uwazi. Na sisi tunasema kama jumba la Senate, sisi ni kulinda ugatuzi, sisi ni kutetea kaunti zetu na kuhakikisha kwamba mgao unaoenda katika kaunti uwe mgao ambao unaweza kutumika kuimarisha maisha ya Wakenya. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ukiangalia katika sekta ya ukulima, serikali imekuwa inatoa pembejeo sawa, lakini mfumo mzima wa ukulima ama zaraa katika kaunti za nchi ya Kenya, mfumo huo unayumbayumba kwa sababu wanategemea wahisani, lakini hawana nguvu za kinishati za kuenda mashinani na kujihusisha na wakulima, kuwapa moyo, kuwapa ujuzi na kuhakikisha yale wanayovuna kama wakulima wa kahawa, wakulima wa majani chai, wakulima wa miwa. Hata tuko na mswada leo tunauleta. Serikali za kaunti hazijapata nguvu kwa sababu serikali ya kitaifa imekataa kuachiliwa mitwalo ama kwa njia nyingine pesa ama kwa jina lingine fulusi, ili magavana na watendakazi katika kaunti waweze kuimarisha kilimo katika nchi ya Kenya. Sasa mimi nasema, Mheshimiwa Speaker, tunapogatua michezo na usanii na kaunti hazijaweka katika migao yao ya uchapakazi pesa za kuimarisha michezo na sanaa, itakuwaje tutarajie matokeo pale mashinani? Mimi naomba pesa tulizodai kama Senate ziende katika kaunti zitolewe, na tuwaandame magavana na wachapakazi waweze kuimarisha michezo na usanii ili vijana wapate kazi, wale ambao si wazembe wapate kipato, na Kenya kwa jumla isonge mbele. Kwa hayo, Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba kuunga mkono msimamo wa kamati ya Senate kwamba serikali ama bunge la kitaifa lituachie nafasi litende haki kwa Wakenya, jinsi tulivyo toa mapendekezo yetu kama Senate kwamba pesa zisipungue, zibaki zaidi ya bilioni 400. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you, Honorable Senator. Senator Advocacy.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to further my thoughts from the committee, because I sit in this committee and we did elaborately consider the bill that was provided or rather proposed by the National Assembly on these conditional and conditional allocations from the national government to county government. Madam Speaker, there has been a very serious erroneous understanding of austerity measures. And the reason why I'm saying there's a serious and erroneous understanding is because, Madam Speaker, what we are seeing is that in the understanding of austerity measures in this country, there is this serious proposal to cut back on county equitable resources, and now this is now extending to cutbacks on county conditional and unconditional allocations, Madam Speaker. The problem, Madam Speaker, is that this is actually tantamount to defunding of counties. Because, Madam Speaker, as you know, most of our counties have got no any other path or any other opportunity, Madam Speaker, to be able to raise alternative cash. The only way that counties are able to somehow figure out how to raise their money is through on-source revenue, Madam Speaker. But even that on-source revenue, Madam Speaker, it is limited because of the scope of taxing options that counties do have, Madam Speaker. For instance, Madam Speaker, in the year 2023-2024, Madam Speaker, the county government of Migori was only able to raise about 406 million from its on-source revenue, Madam Speaker. And if you look at how much money the county government of Migori will need to be able to run its function, Madam Speaker, if you start doing these cutbacks, Madam Speaker, you are properly defunding the county government of Migori, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, this, I think that the National Assembly, instead of even blaming the National Assembly, Madam Speaker, I think we should be able to advise the National Assembly that the effort of defunding counties is actually counterproductive. Because the moment you've gone to counties and then make it impossible for service delivery in counties, and then number two, you make it impossible for administrative functions of the counties to work, Madam Speaker, you'll start realizing that you are going to cause political tensions in these counties, Madam Speaker. For instance, Madam Speaker, for a project to install in national government, the ripple effect compared to projects that install in counties are bigger. They have got bigger consequences by value of Schedule 4 of the Constitution. Because Schedule 4 of the Constitution did devolve functions that are fundamentally functions that deal with basic human needs in the counties, Madam Speaker. Starting from things like health, coming to water, coming to childhood education, coming to vocational training, Madam Speaker. If you look at all the functions of devolution, Madam Speaker, they are functions that are existential functions. So that if you do not fund them properly, and if you do not allow money to go to them properly, Madam Speaker, what you end up doing is a counterproductive element of politics where you put these counties in serious political tension, Madam Speaker. Then, Madam Speaker, some of these fundings that we see being cut, both from the equitable share and now on these unconditional grants, Madam Speaker, you will find that some of these functions directly touch to administrative functions, where some commitments had been made, Madam Speaker. For instance, Madam Speaker, in the bill that the National Assembly forwarded to this House, Madam Speaker, you will realize that they revised the construction of county headquarters, Madam Speaker, by from its initial allocation of 528 billion downwards, Madam Speaker. They also revised the cost of transfer of museum functions, Madam Speaker, all the way downwards from the initial 30 billion, Madam Speaker. They revised things like court fines, Madam Speaker. These are money that already been collected, Madam Speaker. And now they also revised mineral royalties, Madam Speaker. Then the worst that touches directly on service delivery, on efficiency of the economies on the grassroots, Madam Speaker, is that they revised the proceeds from the road maintenance levy fund amounting to 10.5 billion, Madam Speaker. And if you think about it, Madam Speaker, the county roads are exactly what they are. They are county roads because they are found within counties, Madam Speaker. You will find that in places like KCSE, Madam Speaker, women who have worked very hard in their farms and have been able to harvest potatoes, they have been able to harvest bananas, they have been able to harvest avocado, Madam Speaker, that they cannot access market during rainy days, which happens to be a lot of days during harvesting, Madam Speaker, simply because their county roads are bad. If you go to a place like Migori County, Madam Speaker, there is a road between a place called Nyakweri, that is in Nyatike sub-county, and a place called Sori. Between Nyakweri and Sori, there is a major road there, Madam Speaker, that is supposed to facilitate a serious economic engine of that entire area. But, Madam Speaker, fishermen from Sori cannot access markets because the roads there are bad. Fishermen from Sori cannot even be able to bring their goods to Migori market because the roads are bad, Madam Speaker. We have got amazing workforce in places like Kuria, Madam Speaker, a place called Getonganya, where people are working very hard, Madam Speaker, to be able to produce amazing potatoes, Madam Speaker. But during rainy days, Madam Speaker, you'll find that the county cannot even be able to maintain those roads, so that Kenyans who have worked so hard in Kuria and have been able to work the entire season to produce their potato, have their potato now going bad because they are muddy roads that cannot be able to allow them to access markets. And that's why I'm saying that, Madam Speaker, some of these defunding elements to counties are counterproductive. And the National Assembly must understand the idea that if you start allowing for people not to be able to do their basic economic activities in these counties, then, Madam Speaker, we are making it very difficult for the economy to actually be able to advance. Madam Speaker, another problem here that we are starting to see when you start interfering with administrative monies, and especially in some areas, Madam Speaker, where even monies had been committed to some of these contractors who are working. For instance, Madam Speaker, if you look at the reduction on the county aggregation and industrial parks from 4.5 billion to 2 billion, that is more than 50% reduction, Madam Speaker, on projects that contractors had been put on site. A case in example, for instance, Madam Speaker, Migori County was meant to get almost 105 billion for KIPES. We ended up only receiving 62 billion. And I mean 62 million. They were supposed to receive 105 million, and we ended up getting only 62 million, Madam Speaker. Yet you have got contractors who have already been committed to, they are on site, they have got workers they have committed, they have bought a number of supplies, and then all of a sudden you're telling them that you've got over 60% reduction on the money they're supposed to get. What are you telling these contractors, Madam Speaker? You're telling them, number one, lay off your workers. And you can imagine how that has a very serious effect on people who have committed to work in these counties. But then number two, Madam Speaker, for a contractor to commit to such a humongous tender, it would mean that at some moment they have gone and even taken loans. And then you expose them to skyrocketing interests over a period of time that they cannot be able to define, because you've basically cut over 60% of the money they were expecting without telling them when next could they be able to plan with this, Madam Speaker. So this is completely counterproductive. And these are counties that will not be able to raise any money anywhere. They cannot take debt from any other country other than waiting for money from government, Madam Speaker. So this is a very big problem, Madam Speaker. Then, Madam Speaker, I have argued for the case of service delivery in counties, Madam Speaker, that service delivery in counties is touching on essential and fundamental human needs, Madam Speaker. Now, think about a case whereby all the devolved functions in counties are basic need functions. Then you are being told, we are going to cut down on XYZ that are also basic need issues, Madam Speaker. Because if you look at some of this funding that we're talking about here, Madam Speaker, reduction from the allocation on the money that were allocated for community health promoters, Madam Speaker, it is being cut from 3.2 to 2.58. Now, what you're forcing counties here to do, you're telling counties to choose between food and water, between health and basic education of our children. Because when counties cannot be able to get what they are allocated here, Madam Speaker, it means that they must deprioritize some of essential services and try to reprioritize some of still essential services, Madam Speaker. How are you going to remove money that is meant for community health promoters who actually, Madam Speaker, are doing a lot of work, Madam Speaker? These community health promoters, Madam Speaker, used to be community health volunteers. They used to be people who would be able to help our households detect any challenges of health, be able to detect it early, take them to the hospital early, Madam Speaker, and be able to get remedy early before any complication can become a major issue to those families, and therefore save a lot of money. If you are saying that you're going to take, you're going to reduce the community health promoters' money from 3.2 billion to 2.5 billion, 2.58 billion, Madam Speaker, and you know very well that even the money that those community health promoters are earning are not real wages. They are basic stipends that are just there to facilitate them. What is the ripple effect of that action, Madam Speaker? If you're telling the county government that whatever money you have, try and deprioritize community health promoters and put it somewhere else, Madam Speaker. This is where we are going to start seeing community health promoters not being able to go to homes and identify problems of women who are supposed to get clinical services early enough before they get to situations whereby they need neonatal care at birth. And this is where you're going to start facing serious complications in families. Before you realize, mothers will be dying at birth right in their homes without going to hospitals because they could not be able to get assistance by the community health promoters, Madam Speaker. And before you realize, we are going to have serious and multiple complications in our healthcare system, to the extent that a family that could have used the services of a community health promoter to avoid a health complication will now have a complication that now will require more money to be able to go and get proper treatment to deal with the complication, Madam Speaker. So we are talking about serious stuff here, Madam Speaker, that I think that the National Assembly must be invited to a table where they can be able to understand that this idea of defunding counties is completely counterproductive. Completely counterproductive. You cannot keep on reducing monies from counties and then denying them those basic services that they need to do, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, There is also a serious problem of that reduction being completely ridiculous, Madam Speaker. So, for instance, in Migori County, in the year 2023-2024, the conditional additional allocations to Migori County, Madam Speaker, was 394,621,807. Then, drastically, you start suggesting today that Migori County should now get 176 million, Madam Speaker. Look at how drastic that change is. It's over 50%. And because counties run as a case of going concern, Madam Speaker, projects that were started last year, programs that were started last year, Madam Speaker, in Migori County, now you want to force Migori County to be able to cut that by 50%. It's not possible. It's only possible if you force them to actually do away with stuff that were already committed in those projects. So, Madam Speaker, I want to urge this House that even as we reject this bill and go to mediation, Madam Speaker, most likely, I want to urge this House to start an advocacy program with the National Assembly to help them understand that these cutbacks are actually not cutbacks. They are proper defunding to counties that is not in the spirit of devolution and not in the spirit of making sure that our children in these respective counties can be able to get services that are basic services. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I reject in totality the idea that we can even cut a shilling from counties. We cannot do that because we know very well that if we do that, counties will not have alternative ways of raising money in whichever way. I thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity, and I hope that we will make sure that the amendments that are proposed by the Finance and Budget Committee to this bill that was proposed, Madam Speaker, will be implemented. And let's stand very strongly, because now we are going to face a situation where we have got two bills that we must reject. This bill, we are going to reject. And also the DORA bill that was proposed, we must reject that one as well, so that we stand firm in the money that are supposed to go to counties. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Eddie. There are no more senators who are wishing to contribute to this motion. So I'm going to call Senator Bonnie Halole on behalf of Majority Leader to reply as the mover of this motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am so happy as a member of this committee. We thought we would find problems in
can you consult in low tones, Senator Chiradige? You look very excited.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Bonnie, proceed.
We feared that we could have problems in our request that we reject the proposal of the National Assembly. And Madam Speaker, I notice proudly that members have unanimously agreed with the committee and with the reasons. The only right I want to add in response, Madam Speaker, is a presentation from the Senator of Vihiga, who said that the reason why money finds it too long to reach the counties is because of inefficiency in the Office of the Control of Budget. Madam Speaker, that is not true. The Control of Budget is very efficient. The only reason why people want to label her as being inefficient is because she's strict. She does not want a situation whereby a county government like Kakamega has spent 531 million shillings on entertainment, and they come without justifying why. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I wish to reply and wish to request. The Senator of Nyandarua wants to inform me something, but you know, he's threatening me with his beard, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I wish to request that pursuing to Standing Orders number 66.3, you defer putting of the question to a later date. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, the putting of the question has been deferred to another session, which will be reported by the Speaker in due course. Clerk, you can call out the next order.
Order number 9, motion. Report of the Mediation Committee on the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bills number 34 of 2022.
Senator Wafula Wakori.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand here this afternoon to do my maiden moving of a motion, and I want to commence, Honorable Speaker, that Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the Sugar Bill, National Assembly, Bills number 34 of 2022, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 22nd October 2024, and further pursuant to Article 113.2 of the Constitution and Standing Order 167.3 of the Senate, approves the mediated version of the bill. Honorable Speaker, as I have indicated, that today is my maiden moving of a bill that has been at the core and the heart of the sugarcane farmer in the Republic of Kenya. This is a bill that comes in handy to solve long-standing issues that have affected the farmer in the country, affected the manufacturers in this country, affected the chain production from the grassroots to the table, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I speak to you now, the Mediation Committee appreciates that the Sugar Bill aims to reinstate the Sugar Act that previously replaced by the Crop Act in 2013. It has been a subject of extensive deliberation within both houses of Parliament. The Senate first considered the bill and subsequently transmitted and proposed amendments to the National Assembly on 15th May 2024. Following this, on August 1st, 2024, the National Assembly approved the motion regarding the report from the Committee of the Whole House concerning these Senate amendments. However, it is important to note that some of the amendments proposed by the Senate were rejected by the National Assembly. This triggered a mediation process that is outlined in Article 112(2)(b) of the Constitution, resulting in the formulation of mediation committee that developed the harmonized bill. Honorable Speaker, a few items that were of consideration. I want to be in brief so that I give my honorable members an opportunity to contribute. Honorable members, we analyzed and came to a conclusion that we amend or change the timing of zones to eliminate zones and factor in catchment areas that will be able to consider areas of electoral representation, and as well as areas that will be able to provide sugarcane management, where the specific catchment area has a number of factories where they will pump resources, do farming, and ensure farmers within that area benefit from the factories around there, and the catchment area as well to represent the farmers when they're electing people to the sugar board. Honorable Speaker, another factor that was of concern to the mediation team was to ensure that gender, youth, and people with disability are factors